All right, good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be here. Fabulous time to be in London. I don't know if you were here yesterday, but the weather was unbelievable, which is, I'm told, typical of London, where Februarys are always warm and you can always sunbathe. So I'm coming back next February. My name is George Atalla. I am EY's global leader for government and public sector. Before I get started, I'd like to recognize someone who's been very important in getting us to this point, Sean Crawford, who's Vice Chair for Global Industry at EY. So thank you, Sean, for all the help that you've provided. So I'm going to kick off with if you indulge me, with a couple of personal stories. A few weeks ago, I took my daughter to get her car registered. So I live just outside of Washington, D.C., on the Virginia side, and I took her to get her car registered. And we walked into the Department of Motor Vehicles, and we were promptly issued a ticket with a number on it. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure none of you have gone through this process before, but we were issued a ticket with a number on it, and we were pointed to the chairs to go sit down and watch the monitors until our number came up. And we were there and waiting patiently. And my daughter, of course, playing with her phone. And at one point, she looks at me and she says, "Dad, why isn't this as easy as buying shoes online?" And I thought, in her way, that is actually a very profound question. Why does it take hours? And why is my daughter's expectation for life on the internet, why isn't that being fulfilled? And then a few days ago, I was in Barcelona at Mobile World Congress. And if you've ever attended that event, you will see that there's a tremendous amount of technology that is put on display in Barcelona. And that technology every year seems to be leapfrogging the year before. So there's a lot of technological change that's happening. So these two stories in my mind pretty much summarize what's happening. On the one hand, you have user expectations, citizen expectations that have tremendously changed over. It's hard for us to remember that social media has only been around for 20 years. It feels to me that it's been around for 200 years, but it seems now so prevalent everywhere that we forget how fast this change has happened. So on the one hand, you have a user expectation that has tremendously changed. And then you have technology that's also changing very quickly. And government is trying to catch up or keep up with both user expectation or citizen experience and also technological change. And it is not an easy problem. It is not an easy problem. And every single government that we speak with, and I do a lot of travel, just being the nature of what I do, everyone is struggling with that. How do we serve our citizens better, and how do we take advantage of all the technology that's out there? And you will see some of the pressure points: technological change, demographic shifts, globalization, right? So the expectations are changing quite a bit. And when we started thinking about this, we thought, if you were to look at innovation and trying to steal a page from the handbook of innovators and of entrepreneurs, what would an entrepreneur or an innovator do before they launch a new product? What is it that they would do if they were to go to a venture capitalist and say, "Would you actually invest in my idea?" Because I am very sure, I am certain, that this is something that many of us here in this room are thinking about. How do you innovate? Well, every entrepreneur and every venture capitalist will tell you that before we launch a new product, we try to find out if it actually meets the needs of our users, of our customers. And it's pretty much the same question that I'm sure many governments are asking themselves. So this is the question that we ask ourselves. Who are the citizens today, and how have they changed from years before? So if you look at this slide here, we tried to come up with various personas for what each citizen today is and how is that different from the citizens of years before. And you'll see there are 8 different personas, but each one of them is driven by a macro pressure, by a driver that has actually created that persona, whether it's increasing connectivity, whether it's digital abundance or just the prevalence of digital devices, whether it's broadband access, whether it's changing workforce, but each one of those macro drivers, of those pressures, has created a new citizen. So let's look at those a little bit. So this is Meghan. She's 30 years old. In many ways, she's a little bit like my daughter. My daughter, by the way, another personal tidbit for you here. She will be in one room and her sister will be in another room, and they will text each other, which I've always found fascinating, that they actually text or Facebook message each other when they're in two adjacent rooms. I've always find that, but this is what, people like Meghan, who's 30, expects, 24/7 government service, being able to access government at any time of night and day, being able to receive her services as seamlessly as possible. So in a way, reflecting my daughter's comment about why isn't it as easy as buying shoes online. How does one, serve Meghan, who has that particular set of expectations? But Meghan is not the only one. Then you have Ben here. And Ben is an empowered citizen. And by the way, a lot of the people now that we hire at EY, the average age at EY for a company that's 230,000 or 240,000 people, the average age is 28 years. So, I'm a dinosaur basically at the company. But 28 years, these are people who want to do good, who want to feel good about themselves, who want to feel empowered, who want to feel that they're contributing something, and they want their voices to be heard. So that's your empowered citizen. And that's another citizen that needs to be served, again, in a different kind of way. Then you have Rebecca, and Rebecca is, could be someone living in London, in fact. Feels that it's very hard to find good, affordable housing. Where will she live? How will she get the services that she requires? Different kind of person here. And if you think that by 2050, 2/3 of the Earth's population will be living in cities, well, Rebecca is not atypical from the kind of person who's expecting to be in an urban environment and get her services to her in an urban environment. Louisa is an adaptive citizen. It's like many of us. She sees that automation is transforming the workforce. She wants to be up to speed on what's happening in the world. So Louisa will be looking for some continuing education. She wants to know that government is looking after her well-being by keeping her prepared for all the changes that are happening in society. So, are governments ready and able to actually serve and support someone like Louisa, who is at a point in her career where she is genuinely concerned about, will she fit in the workplace of the future? And that's a very specific demographic that is absolutely important for all countries. You have Marina, who's a vulnerable citizen, and Marina's wondering, where will I get my support? Where will I get my welfare? Will I be able to pay my bills? How will I educate my kids? Will I even be able to buy food? And this has often been, one of the main concerns of government. It's people like Louisa. Do we have the ability to care for her in her time of need? And this is, again, a very important demographic that every government has to be very attentive to. Bill, who's 65, is wondering about his pension. Will I actually have enough when I go into retirement, or will I have to work into my 70s to be able to support myself? So Bill is asking himself, will I have enough money to survive into my retirement? This is a question. If you look at the world everywhere now, because of aging, in some of the developing countries, you have fewer payers into the pension system. This problem, the number of unfunded liabilities in pension systems, is just mind-boggling. So Bill has good reasons to be concerned. And people like Bill are, again, people that governments should be identifying and addressing. A few weeks ago, I was in Dubai. Dubai has an event around government. It's called the Global Government Forum, a Global Government Summit, actually. And I was asked to sit on a panel to look at government services. And we were talking about how do you deploy technology to offer better services to citizens. And one of the things that I was really very pleased to hear, someone asked, what about the citizen who is actually not connected digitally, who does not have access to those tools? Aren't we, by rushing into digitization, risking to exclude such a citizen? So if you look at the digitally excluded citizen, Keith, who's 58, he's a farmer. You know, he actually wants to go to the post office. He wants to put a stamp on an envelope. He does not want to use email. He does not want to access his services via a digital medium. So how do we keep in mind people like this? The global citizen. So this is Mark. He's 49. He's an IT professional. He goes from one country to another. He's actually quite concerned because he'd like to have some routine in how he works. He needs to know what the rules are. Will he have to pay taxes in all of those countries? How will he calculate his taxes? Are the rules clear for people like him who travel from one country to another? And this is actually a very valid question. I mean, I just because of what I do, I probably visit at least 20 countries every year. And this is something that I think about. And there are a lot of people now who move a lot because of their jobs, and they move across countries. So they are genuinely asking themselves, are the rules clear and transparent? Will I be able to conform with these rules? Do I understand them well enough? All of those personas are various categories of citizens that now, because of those macro drivers, pressures that I described, they exist, they look at their governments, they expect to be served and supported by their governments. And for governments, it is important to recognize who they are because there will be a need for some personalization of services. And this is what technology allows us to do, but this is also what citizens are expecting from their governments. So I will end with this slide. And really, I hope that this slide serves more as perhaps a prompter for the discussions. And I'm really excited about the discussions that will take place today. But these are some of the questions that I hope we will be addressing today. How can we find innovative ways to develop and deliver policy? How can we develop better approaches to managing public procurement? How can we introduce intelligent automation technologies? How can we harness data and analytics to drive efficiencies? How can we innovate in the workplace to provide greater opportunities for employees? How can we develop new approaches to designing and delivering public services? These are questions that are on the minds of every government that I meet with. And I hope, one day is never enough to cover all of those important topics, but I hope that we will have the opportunity today to look into some of them and to share information and knowledge that would help all of us to address these questions better. So I will stop here. I thank you for your attendance. I look forward to the rest of the day, and I hope you will enjoy it as well. Thank you.